I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's Frank Strait in Columbia, South Carolina. And it is Wednesday, March the 19th, 2025. Welcome to this edition of the Carolina Weather Group, streaming live with you on this Wednesday night on YouTube and Facebook, and of course, available on demand on our audio podcast. Let's get right on over to some breaking news tonight, Frank. Just in from Raleigh, the state capital here in North Carolina, where lawmakers have signed into law a new $524 million Helene recovery bill. This is actually Josh Stein's first official bill sign as the governor of North Carolina. But let's not make this about politics, because it was, in fact, a bipartisan Disaster Recovery Act of 2025. Part 1, they called it. And it shows the support from key state leaders and officials. The law allocates a total of $524 million for recovery efforts in Western North Carolina. That's funding aid for farmers, home reconstruction, infrastructure grants, road repairs, debris cleanup, and school recovery programs, Frank. It extends the statewide emergency declaration for Helene until June the 30th. That's going to be some 9 months after the storm. An additional $217 million is being designated to help Eastern North Carolina residents get back into their homes following the hurricane. And Governor Stein and state leaders are intensifying recovery efforts and advocating for $19 billion in federal funds to restore infrastructure and bolster future disaster resilience. That script said Eastern North Carolinians, and while in fact this was a very large storm, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that is the correct cardinal direction on that particular line of verbiage, because we know Western North Carolina was hit significantly hard. I'll get that checked for us in just a moment. You can see here a picture that the governor's office sent out of him signing that bill just a few hours ago, with, again, those bipartisan lawmakers behind him, both Republicans and Democrats, because you'll remember that Josh Stein, the governor, is a Democrat, but the General Assembly, the House and the Senate here in North Carolina, is made up of a Republican majority in both those houses. A statement tonight from Josh Stein says, "I want to thank the General Assembly for working together to restore this critical aid package to help our neighbors rebuilding after Helene." And a statement here now from the Republican Speaker of the North Carolina House, Destin Hall. "The legislation," he writes, "will bring much needed relief to Western North Carolina, while finally bringing long-awaited relief to hurricane victims in the eastern part of our state." Again, I'm going to double check all those cardinal directions, because I know, Frank, it wasn't just Western North Carolina, it wasn't just Eastern North Carolina, it was also South Carolina, and it was also Georgia. We're going to talk more about that here as we continue on with this live edition of the show, because we have a new report out tonight from NOAA outlining more than 100 pages of their fine-tooth analysis of Helene. And you've read it all, Frank, right?
No, I've skimmed over some of it, but no, I haven't read all of it. I wish I would have had time to read a 100-page report, but I have not. I've only had time to skim a few things, look at a few things, wonder about a few things.
Yeah.
I'm hoping those will get resolved when I have time to truly read the full report. But so not being critical, just thinking and hopefully we will get that resolved one later, but we'll see. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, we know this. You're going to a conference this weekend, thanks in part to Carolina Weather Group Patreon supporters, whose names are going to be scrolling across the bottom of the screen here. You'll be joined by Evan Fisher in Asheville.
Thank you, Patreon supporters.
Yeah, thank you, Patreon supporters, for making this little road trip for Frank possible this coming weekend. And as a repayment to those Patreon supporters, you guys will be getting early or extended access to some of the content that you and Evan will be gathering this weekend in Asheville. Frank, what can we expect next week after you guys are back?
Well, we're going to be doing some interviews with some of the presenters. I haven't reached out to any of those presenters yet, but I will be, and talking to them, hopefully interviewing them about some of their stuff, like Pam Knox talking about agricultural impacts and a few other things that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But
a lot of meteorology, that's for sure.
There's a lot of weather geekiness going to be, and nerdiness too, going to be presented at this meeting in Nashville. And even the name of the conference has slipped my mind.
Southern, but at least Appalachian.
Yeah.
But the takeaway
Weather
is
and Climate Workshop.
See, there you go.
I have the website bookmarked so that in case something like happens, like me forgetting things, I can look that up very quickly.
Yeah. Well,
Weather Climate Workshop.
what you can expect from us next week on the Carolina Weather Group is we will be marking 6 months since this life-changing generational storm in western North Carolina. So Frank and Evan will be bringing back some perspectives from scientists who have been combing over data in the last 6 months, some of which is out in this new NOAA report, which is just out tonight, coincidentally. So, as Frank mentioned, we haven't had a chance to go through it just yet. But in full transparency, I did ask ChatGPT to read the 110-page report just before we came on the air. And Frank, I do think we have some bullets that you and I can read through. Would you like to take the first one?
If I had it in front of me, I would, but I don't see where the links are. Oh, wait, there it is.
There it is.
So, I guess we're going to start by talking about the landfall in the Florida Big Bend region as a Category 4 hurricane, right?
Yes, chronologically, we'll start there.
And the flooding it caused, everybody in Western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina knows about that. And then all the waters that flowed downstream and caused major flooding over some other rivers in North and South Carolina. There was the extreme winds, which did not just end in Florida or even South Georgia. Those extreme winds went all the way up into upstate South Carolina, Western North Carolina, and some areas estimated at 90 plus miles an hour. And I think even Mount Mitchell had 106 mile an hour gust, if I remember correctly. And turned out to be the deadliest hurricane since Katrina, with at least 248 fatalities. I remember the Hurricane Center said 50 happened in South Carolina. They report. I didn't look at North Carolina, which I wish I had.
North Carolina, I know, out of all the states, had the most because of the flooding and the predecessor rain of it.
Right. Total damages $78.7 billion. I know at least $1.2 billion of that was in South Carolina. I think that's probably not the most recent figure at this point. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's gone up since the last time I heard that updated back in December.
Yeah. On your screen right now is a look at the death toll by state. According to this NOAA report, total of direct deaths by state: Florida 18, Georgia 28, South Carolina 26, and North Carolina 85. 77 of those 85 are freshwater flooding.
Yeah. Now those are direct deaths. That's not direct deaths from both directly from the storm and post-storm issues. So that's where the total comes from, is both direct and indirect.
Right. Indirect being things like recovery efforts, injuries, and things that were sustained in the time period after the storm.
You die from injuries sustained while trying to rebuild something or clean your property, and you step on a down power line that was energized, things like that. That's an indirect death.
Yes. Yes. Matter of fact, I think that would be this number here, if I'm not mistaken.
There we go.
Yeah, 248 total. So total deaths, both direct and indirect, as Frank was just saying, it's 34 in Florida, 37 in Georgia, 50 in South Carolina, 105 in North Carolina, 18 in Tennessee, 3 in Virginia, and 1 in Indiana. Because, yes, the storm system was, in fact, that big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still packed a punch even into the Ohio Valley.
Yeah, we know it set record-breaking rainfall amounts, over 30 inches of rain in North Carolina. And we were just mentioning some of those power outages, 7.4 million customers. That's about 16.2 million people lost power.
Right, yeah, I remember almost 1.4 million of them were in South Carolina alone.
Yes, and we know there's still lots of storm debris around, down trees, down power lines. Even 6 months later, the recovery and the rebuilding still ongoing. Storm surge there along Florida's Big Bend, where it came ashore, 12 to 16 feet, destroying 80% of the structures there where it came ashore. Helene spawned 39 tornadoes, including an EF3 tornado in Nash County, North Carolina. Tornadoes and high winds toppled trees onto homes, killing dozens in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, where some of the most wind-related fatalities were suffered. At the beginning of the show, as we were talking about the disaster recovery bill, we mentioned Eastern North Carolina. And again, we did acknowledge at the time that there were impacts, like we saw there at the tornado in Nash County, that there were impacts in Eastern North Carolina. And I just wanted to triple check myself that we had the quotes correct from the lawmakers as they were talking about the Helene recovery bill. And they did, in fact, in those quotes, talk about Eastern North Carolina. So they're talking about both Eastern and Western North Carolina. And I did want to follow up and confirm that fact check here as we're processing this new information that has literally only come out after 5 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. The tweet from the National Hurricane Center showing that thing was 3:04 p.m. when the report was, when that tweet came out on Twitter or X, the post on X. We're supposed to be saying, but never revert to saying.
I'll get there eventually. I'll get there eventually. So, Frank, I'm sure that you and your colleagues who will be at this convention this weekend in Asheville will have a little bit more time to peer through this. You'll be talking more about that predecessor rain event, the tornado, the wind fatalities, and I'm sure to a certain extent, maybe lessons learned that can be applied to future forecasting, to future emergency response. So, again, we look forward to hearing from you and Evan when you guys get back next week.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good stuff.
Yeah. So that's coming your way next week here in the Carolina Weather Group, as next week will mark 6 months since the storm, the Helene storm that we will not forget. Let's talk about some of the weather that rolled through the Carolinas this week, as the spring severe weather season seems to be off to a powerful and strong start.
Yep.
We got some video from the Weather STEM network across the Carolinas. This is actually video of Lake Murray. I tried to find the actual tornado in this footage. I think this camera might be pointing south versus the tornado being just north of there. But, early morning tornado warnings yet again for South Carolina. Here's Aiken, where we know they had not one but 2 tornado warnings roll through about that 7:30 a.m. time on Sunday. You can see the heavy rain and the wind here. Of course, the western half of the state got it first before it moved off to eastern North Carolina. Really almost 24 hours later, it took it to move across the whole state. This storm system coming through after bringing devastating impacts to other portions of the deep south. Take a look here at Frank's screen share. We can see just as how many storm reports came in on the 15th and the 16th. We're talking.
There's the 16th.
There it is. You can see as the storm moved further
the 15th,
east.
The 16th. The 15th.
Yeah, no, the 15th, that's Saturday, that was a tier 5 out of 5 of the Storm Prediction Center severe weather outlook.
Right. Some of these tornadoes back in Alabama and Mississippi, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think, if I remember right, 3 of them were EF4 tornadoes. One of them was nearly an EF5, be the first one we've had in years. Several of them were EF3s. That's a lot of violent tornadoes.
Absolutely. And we know we got some tornadoes here in the Carolinas as part of this storm system. Luckily, not as strong as the ones that Frank was just mentioning across the deep south. But nonetheless, we did get some tornadoes here in the Carolinas, a handful of them, actually. And I can go ahead and bring them up on your screen right now. We can show them to you and kind of read off what the Weather Service here in the Carolinas was able to confirm. This would include both portions of Sunday and portions of early Monday morning. The yellow polygons representing all of the severe thunderstorm warnings they issued, the red polygons, the tornado warnings they issued. Anything that has a little tornado icon on it is a confirmed tornado. So here's that Lake Murray storm. And Frank, I don't know how intimately familiar you are with this. It was real close to you.
Yeah, that's an EF1. Let me get with the old damage assessment toolkit here so we can look at the track for it.
I think I have that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right on here. Stand by. To the screen
but
share.
Yes, it was an EF1. It was on the north end of Lake Murray, just south of Chapin. And it was an EF1. There were kind of 2 areas that had EF1 damage. One of them was right over the lake, I think, and the other was
There it goes.
Just the other side. There we go. There we
Yep.
go. There we go. So there's the track. Lake Murray Dam, for those of you who are familiar, is down here. That's South Carolina Highway 6 that goes over the dam there, and people like to drive really fast in that area. And Dreher Island, the state park, is back here, just to the west of where the tornado started. So this little peninsula here, and this little branch of the lake here, which I can't remember what those are called. Chapin's up here. And this little dashed line here is the Richland-Lexington County line there. So that gives you an idea of where things are if you're familiar with the geography of the Midlands. And all those little triangles are damage reports. The polygon is areas where tornado damage occurred.
We do have a picture from the National Weather Service of a downed tree in that area. Again, this was an EF1 tornado, one of the first of the day, 7:38 a.m. through 7:48 a.m. on Sunday morning. And we can take you back out now to the damage assessment tool here and the local storm reports that were issued, and show you there was another tornado just south of there that was also confirmed. This one near the Savannah River site. And this was a tornado in EF0 touching down there in Snelling and Barnwell with peak winds of 80 miles an hour. Relatively short-lived tornado beginning in Sweetwater County, or near the Sweetwater Country Club, excuse me, and moved to the northeast, uprooted at least 5 large pine trees and snapped several large branches before dissipating. But that was yet another cause of severe weather on Sunday. And I think we might have a picture of that one as well too. Yes, we do. I can take you over to that again from the National Weather Service here. You can see some of those down trees and such of that preliminary assessment that National Weather Service in Columbia did, both on the Georgia side and the South Carolina side.
Right. Both of these tornadoes, well, the 3 of them, counting the 2 just across the Savannah River in Georgia and the one just west of Barnwell, were all EF0s, so they were relatively weak and thankfully didn't cause a ton of damage. The one between Snelling and Barnwell, that only caused tree damage at that country club, thankfully. So it was relatively weak, short-lived, to help give people another landmark in that area is just southwest of the Barnwell Airport, little regional airport there.
We had another tornado warning, this one outside the Charlotte area in Stanley County, and a little bit of a radar hole as it made its way towards Albemarle. We don't have any confirmed tornadoes there. We did have a thunderstorm wind report of damage near Unionville, where they did have a tornado earlier on in this, what feels like an early start to the spring season. We had a tornado reported. This one did go, unfortunately, unwarned just north of Wilmington. This was in Pender County. An EF1 tornado was confirmed there at about 7:25 p.m. We also had adjacent to that, as the cell continued further to the north, a couple of thunderstorm wind damage reports that were associated with that same area of thunderstorms kind of later on Sunday night. And then about 3 a.m. in the morning, we have this one near Elizabeth City. This is unfortunately one that resulted in 8 injuries. A tornado touching down at about 3 a.m. in the morning in a field just southwest of, I got a logo there. Can we get the logo out of the way? Let's get the logo out of the way so I can read this a little bit better.
Kill that bug.
There we go. Longview Estates near Woodville Road. The tornado quickly moved northeast, rolling and destroying 3 mobile homes in Longview Estates, damaging several other homes. 8 injuries were reported in Longview Estates, with the strongest winds from this tornado clocked at 110 miles an hour. And after leaving the Longview Estates, the tornado then moved across the Little River. The tornado tracked near the Glade Road area while downing numerous trees and damaging some sheds along the path. The tornado lifting about 3:06. All of that happened in 5 minutes at 3 o'clock in the morning. That is not what you want to see. We of course don't want to see any injuries, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, tornado warning in an area, especially here, Frank, with mobile homes, that is a difficult situation to be in.
Yeah, it sure is. That is a recipe for injuries and deaths, is to try to ride out any kind of tornado in a mobile home.
Yeah, we always say try to get to some place that's safe, and that can be really tricky sometimes, we know. Some other damage reports that we did get in from thunderstorm wind damage in the area. We can show these to you now on your screen. This looks like pictures from Hawkers Island This is just outside the Newport Moorhead City, out there along the Outer Banks. You can see some damage here to outside the Dollar General. Some damage to a home. Maybe this is a piece of a dock or something that kind of got tossed up and blown around. We also had the thunderstorms producing that tornado in Pender County, and a water spout was reported near Southport. Take a look at this picture that the National Weather Service shared with us. Here's that water spout again. It's essentially a tornado over water, and then becomes, if it holds together, a tornado once it comes over the land. This is being associated here again with the storms earlier on this week in the Carolinas. Frank, also worth mentioning, of course, that it wasn't just wind damage from things like tornadoes or severe thunderstorms. We also had 2-inch size hail reported Guilford County, up by Greensboro. We can show you some of these hail measurements on the screen here. Look at this 1 to 2 inch hail stretching from Asheboro through portions of High Point, Greensboro, even some hail measurements in Winston-Salem and up towards Reedsville. And we know that means folks most likely had some sort of damage to their homes or to their cars. Not what you want to be seeing here with a thunderstorm that came through, if memory serves, about the 7:30, 8 o'clock hour.
Yeah, 2-inch hail, that'll ding you up pretty good.
It absolutely will. And if I can find it, I know we had a picture from that area, and I am going to download these right now. Joseph Navin sent pictures of the hail. That was about 3/4 inch size hail or so. And I'm going to just quickly go ahead and put this on the screen for you so you can see what it was that he saw in the greater Greensboro area. And we did relay this report from the Carolina Weather Group over to the National Weather Service office in Raleigh that has jurisdiction for Greensboro to let them know what it was that we saw. So we appreciate that two-way communication. And you can see the hail here in his hand. Again, he sent other pictures that showed essentially the hail next to a ruler. So it was about a 1/2 to 3/4 inch size hail. And it wasn't just one or two of them. It was enough of them to essentially accumulate hail on the ground from this severe thunderstorm. Take a look at this picture, Frank.
Nice.
Yeah. So hail in the Carolinas with the storms this week. We also had flash flooding reported in the Raleigh area, where the flood gauge here at Pigeon House Branch exceeded its flood stage of 12 feet. This was about 10:30 at night. This did result in minor flooding in some of those low-lying areas in Raleigh that are prone. We did have a report of stranded vehicle there in northeast Raleigh. So almost all forms of severe weather, flooding, wind damage, hail, tornadoes, Sunday through Monday. And again, as Frank was mentioning, just the kind of the impacts of this storm across North Carolina, South Carolina, and the Deep South. Take a look. I think I just broke my map. I was trying to show every polygon that was issued, every storm report that was collected.
Let's just say it was a lot.
It was a lot. So we know it did unfortunately result in dozens of deaths. It's only March, the severe weather season just getting underway. And so if you haven't already, please, folks, we really do highly encourage that you purchase a NOAA weather radio. And it will beep like a smoke detector in the middle of the night when the National Weather Service issues those life-saving warnings.
Right. Yeah, your phone is of course the first thing for most people. And then the weather radio should probably be your second thing, because you need at least 2 ways to receive those warnings. Glitches can happen. Sometimes those warnings get caught up in the computer system and get delayed a little bit. So you need to have 2 ways to be warned for severe weather instead of just one, just to have that redundancy. It wouldn't hurt to have even more if you have other ways available.
Yeah, we know some of you were listening to the Carolina WeatherNet, which is available for free from the Carolina Weather Group on our YouTube channel. It reads out severe weather bulletins now, but I wouldn't want that to be your sole way of getting warnings either. Your phone, NOAA weather radio. And how often do we hear, Frank, that friends and family just called and woke people up? So, yeah.
That's another thing too. If it's a family member of yours or a friend that you know is in the path of, or in that polygon, you give them a call. make sure
Yeah.
they know what's going on.
Before we go this week, let's talk about the return of NASA's SpaceX Crew-9, splashing down yesterday in the Gulf off the Big Bend of Florida. As you may have seen if you joined us for live coverage on the Carolina Weather Group YouTube channel, this did include the two, I'm going to do air quotes now, stranded astronauts. There they are, Butch and Sonny, along with two other members of Crew-9. There's my face, and I'm probably giving the same rant on the live stream that I'm giving now. Yes, Butch and Sonny went to space last June on a mission that was supposed to last 10 days. They spent 9 months in space. That's not what we wanted to do. That was wrong. But because their Boeing Starliner aircraft, of which they were the test crew for, was deemed unsafe for them to fly back, NASA made the decision to leave them on the International Space Station, rolling them into the regular crew rotation. And so for the first time outside of the test missions for SpaceX Dragon, a actual operational crew launched to the space station with just 2 people aboard a Dragon so that 4 could come back down. So they did return safely, soundly into the Gulf yesterday, 9 months after they went up. But I got to argue, Frank, if anybody stranded them up there, it was Boeing.
Right.
Why is no one talking
Well,
about Boeing?
That's the thing. As you mentioned, they were the test crew,
They were the
and
test
they
crew.
understood that things might still not be perfectly good. And I'm sure they were much happier to spend an extra 260, I guess, days in space
A lot of days. A lot of days. I'll give you that.
instead of taking a real chance of dying on the way home. So,
Yes.
besides, at least probably the first 10, 20 maybe extra days in space were probably a lot of fun for them.
Yes. And again, we put them to work as
Mhm.
astronauts, as scientists, as members of the U.S. government. I had 2 analogies I've been using conversationally with people. One, can you really be stranded if your vehicle is parked outside the whole time? The capsule we just watched splash down yesterday, that particular capsule has been there since September. And I was
Right,
also kind of
and
like, it's a little bit like military deployments. Yes, they went on a tour. Yes, their tour got extended. But we don't say that we left military people stranded. We just
Mhm.
their tour got extended.
Right, and, their space vehicle still being attached there, I
Yes,
mean, that could have been an escape, method of last
absolutely.
resort should something gone wrong on the state's space station, so
Yeah, I gotta give a shout out to Ken Kirkland the fourth on X. He made this graphic, Frank, and it shows the timeline from when SpaceX. Oh, my mouse is not being screen shared. That's okay. It shows the timeline from when each crew went up. SpaceX Crew 8, 9, and ultimately 10, and the Boeing flight coming up in June. And it also shows the vehicles that were parked at the space station throughout the course of that. So, like when the Boeing Starliner got there, the Crew 8 vehicle was there. Then Crew 8 went back down after 9 came up. We did at some point send the Boeing Starliner to burn up through the atmosphere. And then Crew-9's vehicle returned with them this week after Crew-10 came up. And so it shows how there was always a vehicle. Yeah, I will say there was a kind of iffy point between June and August when if they had to evacuate at that point, they would have been cramming into one of these things. One of these
Mhm.
SpaceX Crew Dragons, 4 fit comfortably in there. There were a lot of questions on whether or not they could get 6 in there if they had to. But they were never without a vehicle.
Right.
So here they are coming out of their SpaceX Crew Dragon, which was named Freedom. And you can see here that personnel from SpaceX went in. Here they are. They're all smiling and they're waving, the astronauts. And then medical crews helped the astronauts off the capsule. This is 100% completely normal. We have seen it with every return of a SpaceX Dragon capsule, including the test mission, which was only a couple days long. They went into a stretcher, they went into a wheelchair. This is just to help them reacquaint with gravity. And
Right.
so, You can kind of
Right.
see it in
It's
the
when
video
you've been
here.
up in space for a while, it's a big
Right.
transition to come back home to, well, full gravity on the Earth where you have essentially zero gravity when you're in orbit.
Yeah.
So it, your 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 bones uh,
Density.
lose some density. Your muscles become a little atrophied if you spend that much time in space. Even though you do things while you're up in the
They do.
spacecraft to help mitigate that. You're being held down while you're on a treadmill, for example,
Yeah.
to help simulate gravity and walking in gravity. That helps mitigate the loss of bone mass and muscle
There's
strength.
Sonny.
But right when you get back to Earth, there is an adjustment period, and it's lengthy to get used
It
to
is.
gravity again.
In 2023, when we went down, Carolina Weather Group went down to Kennedy Space Center, we had a chance to talk with some astronauts who'd been to space. And I remember one of the things they told us, and this is included if you watch our 2023 episode, was getting used to sleeping in space. Because,
Mhm.
like, when you fall out of bed, you wake up, right? Your body thinks you're falling. And they were talking about how when you're floating around in space, your body constantly thinks you're floating until you get used to microgravity. And then it's the same thing, just the opposite when you come back. All of a sudden, your body's like, why am I not floating? Why am I standing only on the floor
Right.
and not the wall or the ceiling?
By the way, all of you who are excited about going to Mars, about sending people to
Mm-hmm.
Mars, these are challenges that are going to have to be overcome before
Yeah.
we can actually send people to Mars. Because I think that the trip to Mars is about 270 days.
Yes. Which is why in
Um,
last week's show, you and I talked about their growing food on the space station to learn how to farm in space.
right, because I mean, certainly you can't carry all that food
Right.
for what's essentially going to be a multi-year trip
Yep.
to Mars and back. You can't carry all that food with you. Sure, you can send some to Mars in advance, and it's there for you to. And sure,
I
you
guess.
can
Yeah.
maybe have some waiting for you in Earth orbit, waiting for you in Mars orbit, or whatever, or maybe somewhere halfway in between that you can dock with. But you can't carry all that food with you to Mars and back. We have to figure something else out, and that includes growing your food in space. Um, and that's in addition to dealing with gravity or the lack thereof in space. We'll have to figure out a way to simulate gravity by spinning the spacecraft or whatever. That's one thing you can
Yep.
do.
That's one of the things to test for. Yeah, certainly. That's why we want to go to the moon. We're gonna
Mhm.
perfect it on the space station. We're gonna perfect it on the moon, and then we're gonna try to perfect it on Mars. Did
Right.
you see the dolphins?
I did not see the dolphins. Do you have video of the
So
dolphins?
I do have video of the
There they
dolphins.
are.
So if you watch carefully, you see them splashing around in the ocean near the astronauts.
Mhm.
Look at this.
Dolphins say, "Hello, human. Welcome back to Earth."
Hello, welcome back. It was so funny. It was cool to see those dolphins. So this was the
Mhm.
crew was still inside the capsule, um, and you could just see them splashing around in the water. Also, way to be like way cool in the 21st century, SpaceX. I see you with these cool high definition drones flying over the ocean with this
Mhm.
live imagery. Like these are cool shots. I gotta say,
Yeah, sure are.
it's good PR, but also like good shots. Because it's the video that everyone uses. Every news outlet in the country is using NASA's broadcast, which is now in cooperation with SpaceX. So that
Mhm.
was just cool. That was cool. Anyway, glad they're home safely. Thanks for listening to my rants. I had somebody on Twitter yesterday ask me why I was so obsessed with my rants.
Why are you so obsessed, James?
Because I feel like I have something I can share. I'm not a political guy. I can't argue with you about fiscal line items, but I can say, hey, here's really what's happening here.
Mhm. Right. James just is on a quest for the truth, and
I'm
that's all.
trying. I'm trying.
It's out there.
One viewer at a time. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Hashtag not endorsed by TED.
Well,
Uh,
we've grown a little bit lately. We're probably up to like 14 or something viewers now.
Probably. Especially 30 minutes into an episode. Thanks, Mom.
Right.
Matter of fact, I think
Mr.
that's
Mom's
where.
watching.
Well, you're going to see your mom this weekend, so you can remind her.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So we look forward to what you guys bring back from Asheville this weekend. They'll have a special edition of the Carolina Weather Group next week, marking 6 months since Helene. And then before we know it, we'll be in the thrust of severe weather season. So I think that's going to do it for this week's edition. Frank, it's always good to see you. And thanks to our 10 people, including my mom, for watching.
Yeah, well, there's one more thing we got to talk about.
Oh,
And it's like
okay.
one or two things that's going to happen in our weather over the next few days.
It doesn't involve
Which-
James Taylor's fire and rain and ice and
No, well, sorta, I guess.
Okay.
Well, at least the rain part is that there's going to be a cold front moving through tomorrow with some showers in eastern North Carolina, and maybe down to the Grand Strand gets a thunderstorm, but I don't think we'll see any severe weather. Yay!
Yay.
Don't need that. Behind it comes some chilly air. Western North
Yeah.
Carolina, high ground, you're going to get a freeze. Piedmont, close to freezing. Upstate South Carolina, north of 85, probably down around freezing. But it'll probably be too windy for frost. Frost doesn't usually form when it's windy, so
Unless you're in the
only
mountains.
wind-sheltered areas. Oh, I forgot about the upslope snow.
Yeah.
The northwest flow snow. There's going to be some high ground snow along the Tennessee line. That could be 6 inches or so in the usual favored areas. You know who you are,
That's what I
or
was
know who
thinking.
you not are. If you're in Asheville, you're not going to get 6 inches of snow from a northwest snow. That's not
No.
how it works, and y'all know that if you live there.
Agreed. So yes, that's a good flag. Also very dry, very windy. Please, there's an enhanced fire danger still. Maybe we don't need to be burning leaves just yet, folks.
Right.
And it's not just in this area, but this is the nearest graphic that I grabbed. I mean, those relative humidity numbers are. My lips are chapped. Everything is static.
Yeah, it's pretty dry.
It's dry.
It's pretty dry. Oh, and one other thing worth mentioning. Maybe this happens to us. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it only happens to our west. But the storm that's pushing this cold front our way, there was a lot of wind with it in the plains, and once again there was another dust storm in Texas, and the dust got shoved eastward. And so don't be surprised if you see some slightly muddy rain tomorrow. With any of these showers that pop up around the Carolinas. That actually did happen up in Wisconsin. There was the very dust-laden rain that fell. So
Let me ask
don't be
you, though.
surprised if that happens here.
I mean, what's better? Do I want my car covered in dust or do I want it covered in pollen?
Yeah, that's the good thing about the showers tomorrow is that we'll actually see some pollen get washed away, and the pollinating is definitely well underway here in South Carolina. My window's been coated. I first noticed it back on Friday. I got a portable solar panel in the mail. I'm like, oh, I got to test this out. It's mostly sunny today, so out it went, and I was very happy that I actually got the rated power output from it. But
Yeah.
that went away after an hour or so because there started to see some pollen accumulating on the solar panels.
That will happen. That will certainly happen. I was pretty satisfied. I was using a solar panel last week. We did a little school visit, and I put a solar panel on top of the car. Obviously, it's not permanently affixed there, just like while we're parked, and then it goes into a battery. And after 4 hours in this school parking lot here in Charlotte, I had more power than I started with.
Yep. Yeah, if you're just using portable electronic devices that don't really use that much power, that can happen. It looks like that solar panel is probably rated at like 100 watts.
We brought it up when we did the Lake Lore special. We had Starlink, we had the solar panel and the battery. We were our own little. I don't know how long it would all last for, but get a little bit of it. Solar panel's cool. So
yeah, that's part of the reason why I have it is to be able to charge a battery so I can run my CPAP machine at night if the power goes out for an extended period of time.
Yeah. I think that's all I got.
I think that's all I got too. Let's go to bed.
Not together. No, you stay there. I'll stay here. Thanks to everybody who clipped that and put it online. My wife would be very confused. But enjoy the conference, and we look forward to talking to you about it next week.
Yep, we'll do this again next week and talk about a bunch of weather geeky stuff that transpires in Asheville this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Until then, be well, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.